Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I find myself reflecting on a little discovery that I made over the past couple of days. You see, over the past couple of days I've been a bit unwell. I caught a bug that's sort of been relayed to me. So, persons unknown had this bug, then my lovely wife caught it, and then I got it, and it basically just sort of lays you out for a couple of days. It's not the worst cold in the world, it's not the worst stomach in the world, but it just makes you feel really quite grim. Bad headache, terrible cough, nausea, dizziness, and you can't really do any serious work or concentration for about 2 days. And so we sort of rolled and tag teamed our sickness, as it were, over the weekend and then into the beginning of this week. And we've made a couple of discoveries over that time. For a start, on YouTube, we discovered a couple of new semi-favourite YouTubers. One of them is William Osman, a maker and slightly puerile individual, but who am I to judge? Deeply entertaining though with that combination. And also Michael Reeves, another maker and crass YouTuber, but also again deeply entertaining. And together they actually live in the same house now, but together they sort of both make things that are very interesting, scientifically rounded in terms of engineering and coding and this kind of thing, but also often just hilarious. For example, yesterday we watched them trying to make a B-Day and a gun that shoots you when you get shot in Fortnite, this kind of thing. So yeah, we went down a bit of a rabbit hole over the past couple of days. But for me, my lovely wife went back to work, and yesterday I was on that downward slant away from feeling really, really bad towards feeling a bit more human. And I spent the day basically on the sofa with the lovely living hot water bottle that is our dog, browsing YouTube, Netflix, and also Amazon Prime. My lovely wife is an Amazon Prime member, and with that you get access to Amazon Prime Video as a video service. And all day yesterday, I was desperately trying to avoid paying to watch Fear the Walking Dead Season 4. You see, Season 1, 2 and 3 are free. They are on Prime, as it were, so you can watch them if you are an Amazon Prime member. But Season 4 is not yet. It's too new, or however it is that they define it. And so if you want to watch it, you can pay by episode, like £2.49 per episode, or you can buy the whole season for like 23 quid or something. And I was like, no, don't give in to it. It'll be free eventually, just wait, or it'll be free on the service eventually. The point is, we're paying for the service. Why should we have to pay more to watch the thing that's going to be... Anyway. So I was trying to avoid watching that, trying to avoid giving them more money, when I came across a couple of things that piqued my interest. First of all, Ghost Ship. Now that is a little slice of terrible horror movie nostalgia for me that I'll probably talk about in a future episode. I did watch that. It was gloriously bad, just as I remembered it from my days working at Blockbuster. But the second thing was Battlestar Galactica. And it's actually quite good. Now let me explain, and I'm sure that there'll be people out there who don't find that to be a remotely controversial statement. But Battlestar Galactica, for me, came out at just the wrong time, or just the right time, depending on how you look at it. Just the right time for me to not see it. Because it came out in 2003, 2004-ish, just as I was gearing up and then going to university. And it ended in 2009 when I was busy with other things, that sort of jump off from university, setting out on a life in the real world type malarkey. And it just sort of passed me by. I suppose I definitely had an awareness of the original TV series, Battlestar Galactica, from the late 70s, 1978, 79-ish, thereabouts. Almost certainly a reaction to Star Wars in 1977, and very brown, I remember it being. Very sort of, very 70s, very Well, actually, almost the same. It feels the same watching that TV series as watching John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. you know? Very 70s. But I remember as a kid loving the Viper ships flying down those tubes out into space with the space battles with the Cylons and the red light on their head and their faces. The robots with the Cyclops robots. I remember enjoying it. But my next awareness of this series really happened in 2008, maybe 2004, when I was living in York anyway. And I saw either the penultimate or the final season's box art, DVD box art, the cover. And on the front there was this red lady, there was a lady in a red dress, and she was standing there, sort of with her arms out in a gesture of "I'm innocent," surrounded by members of the Battlestar Galactica crew, sort of reminiscent of the Last Supper or something like that. And it to me felt a bit excessive, It felt like someone was going, "Oi, nerd! Look at this! Here's a lady in a red dress and geeky shit around her. You'll like this. Buy this." That's kind of how it felt to me. It felt like someone was being a bit over the top in terms of their marketing, or a bit basic in terms of their marketing. And so I've just avoided it. It came out at the wrong time. It looked like it was a bit, like I say, a bit sort of in terms of, okay, yeah, hot woman knows that I'm meant to like it because of that. And so I just sort of ignored it. But on Amazon Prime, for free, all of Battlestar Galactica, starting with the mini-series, 2 feature-length episodes that were released in 2003. And so I figured, why not? This will stop you watching or being tempted to watch season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead. Watch this. So I pressed play, pressed X, and it's really quite good. Well, back to that. It's good in so much as I've only watched now the first two episodes, or the mini series, those 2 feature-length episodes. And then 2 episodes of season 1. So I've barely watched any of it. But so far, what I'm really liking can be summed up by a line that's delivered to a character called Gaius Baltar, a sort of a genius, narcissist, you could say, in this series, where the lady in the red dress, number 6. She is known as. She says to him, "The children of mankind are returning home." And this is in the context of these humans having created 12 colonies on different planets. And in order to create those colonies many years before the events of the series, they created these robot servants, these slaves, where robot actually apparently comes from a Slavic word for slave, in fact. So they created these robots anyway, and a war broke out when seemingly that the humans had mistreated them or had no more use for them. Maybe they were going to shut them down, and the Cylon War occurred. And then 40 years later, with humans having won the Cylon War, we have this moment where Baltar realizes that he's been sleeping with a Cylon. She sort of confesses everything to him, and we've got little hints of this so far in the drama, in so much as we see her walking around town, bumping into people in a slightly curious way. She's just fascinated by how people behave, and she picks up a baby at one point, and she's so interested in what this baby is and how it is that the head is supported by such a small neck, and it's strongly implied that she maybe experiments with that and maybe snaps its neck before she walks away, because you hear the mum screaming, "My baby! What happened to my baby?" kind of thing. So she's slightly alien. She's slightly curious, I suppose, as you would be if you were living amongst humans for the first time. But also this notion of the legacy of mankind, humanity's children, these robots, this AI is coming home. That got me. That really hooked me in. And then when we saw that in this 40-year time gap, humans had developed laws against, for example, having too much AI, too many computers in their lives. The ship, the Battlestar Galactica, is made up of deliberately antiquated technology. There are no wireless phones, for example. There are no computer networks. It's designed so that it's really hard for a machine or for a virus, for example, to take hold on board. All these little elegant little things were slotting into place. And also I imagine probably in 2004 it was quite nice to be able to grab technology that was just about going out of date, like for example corded telephones, for cheap, and put them into your set. So it's probably quite clever from a set design standpoint as well. But all of that, and the fact that the ship is about to be handed over as a museum, almost like the is it the Missouri in Under Siege, Steven Seagal, when they're about to hand over for the last time they're about to sort of, say goodbye to the ship. Anyway, you get this sense of a serving military, a navy, about to put down arms, and it felt very real. And don't get me wrong, it's not massive in scale. Again, you can see the budget. You can see the budget on the screen, but also you can see the limits of that budget on the screen. At times there's some really shoddy green screen going on. There's a point when Chief Engineer and some other people are walking across the hangar bay, and you can see the bay disappearing into the distance as a matte painting. And you know it's a matte painting because as they cross that threshold, this terrible green fuzzy line appears around them. So you can absolutely see some of the limits in terms of green screen and special effects. But it's pretty good, pretty darn good, and I kind of got sucked in. I really like the slow burn of the first few episodes, this sense of people not really knowing what's happening as the Cylons unleash a surprise attack on the 12 colonies, essentially murdering, massacring millions of humans, leaving around about 50,000 people alive just because they happen to be on convoy somewhere else. They're in the equivalent of a freighter or something, or a passenger ship, and then having to see the Battlestar Galactica coming back into service, just as these old war dogs, Commander Armada, is that his name, Armada, and his XO, along with characters like Apollo and Starbuck, who's a woman in this series, but I think she's brilliant. She's actually also in the third Riddick movie, which is pretty cool actually, seeing her again. It just works, and it's really intriguing me. Now it has the potential probably to get really cheesy and really bad at some point, but it makes sense now of the prominence of the woman in the red dress, in so much as she's actually, oddly enough, very religious so far in this series. She seems to believe in purpose and in God's will. And what it is that she means by that is not quite clear yet. But her as a machine with a faith, as a counterpoint to Bolter, who is a genius human with no faith, that's an interesting combination as well. It's really quite good. And so I suppose what the point of this little video is just to say that this is yet again another example of an ongoing process for me over the past several years, chronicled to a certain extent on this YouTube channel. I have been, in many instances, visiting and revisiting not only things of elements of nostalgia, but also elements of nostalgic bias that I've had, and realizing that actually being biased against almost anything that other people like is silly, because if people like it, there's got to be something there to like, with a couple of exceptions, like football. This sort of, often I return to the example of tomatoes. When I was a kid, I always hated tomatoes, especially fresh tomatoes, but it wasn't until I was living and working in York and realised that I can't afford just to buy a salad sandwich or even make a salad sandwich and not countenance having tomatoes in there. It's nutrition, it's not expensive, don't throw it away. If other people like it, it must be nice. And I got over that as well, revisiting your childhood or your younger self and that person's opinions, it's always a good thing. And in this instance, Battlestar Galactica. I'm so glad that I didn't just continue presuming what the series was about. Now again, as I say, it has the potential to go who knows where. It may well end up being awful, but the first few episodes have been really quite good. So I keep on saying that. Really quite good. One thing as well, just finally, that I really like about it is the, so you have the sort of the slow burn of the drama, but also the slightly slow burn and almost submarine-like combat. Well, actually, naval combat in that sense. There's a sequence in the second part of the mini-series, so the second half of that first pre-season season, where the Battlestar Galactica is doing a covering maneuver. They're coming out of a cloud of material where the Cylons can't follow them. They go out first with civilian ships following them. They turn side on, so like a galleon almost, covered in cannons, side on to the enemy and start unleashing a barrage to provide cover for the civilians to escape and jump to light, FTL, faster than light travel, to escape. And all of that was done, and the way you see it happen, the way that the sound is quite muted. I always appreciate it when sound in space is at least muted, if not non-existent. The way that you have the chatter between the pilots and the command officers on Galactica, and the way that they enact a battle landing or combat landing, so that the fighters go out, hold off as many Cylons as possible, the civilians escape, then all the pilots have to come back and make an emergency landing. It just felt right. They didn't milk it too much. It felt like a combat scenario, and it felt like that sort of somewhere between Star Trek and Master and Commander or a pirate movie, you know, that kind of thing. It's really quite good. So, in a nutshell, yet again, this lesson is something that I heartily recommend to others to consider. Revisit your biases. See whether or not you still don't like tomato. And don't get me wrong, I still don't like baby tomato. It's like eating an eyeball, you know, pop in your mouth. But check that. Make sure that actually your opinion wasn't too rushed or too biased or ill-informed. In fact, in my case, in this instance, I was ill-informed. I had no idea why I was ignoring Battlestar. It's not my fault I missed it, but it was my fault that I just presumed that it was going to be rubbish or a bit crass or a bit naff. That was on me. So yeah, an ongoing life lesson that's really personified in this YouTube channel, I think. And hopefully you guys at home can benefit from some of my mistakes. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.